is a video on how to change the oil in a 2011 Jeep Grand Cherokee 5.7 liter HEMI. Specifically what you'll need for this job there is some oil, 7 quarts to be exact, a glove so you can have your hands kept clean when you take off the oil filter and remove the drain plug, a funnel to fill up the oil filter as well as the engine, a new oil filter, potentially you might need an oil filter wrench, and then you'll need a 16mm socket and ratchet or breaker bar depending on what how tight that drain plug is on there. And of course some cardboard never hurts to keep your work area clean, and a drain pan. And with that, that's all you need to get this job started. So we're gonna go and open the latch to the hood here. So an important first step is to make sure that you have the right type of oil and the right amount of oil for your vehicle. So we open up our owner's manual, flip to the back to the maintenance and fluids, and we see that it says for the 5.7 liter HEMI to use an API certified 5W20 engine oil. So, and we need 7 quarts. So we're gonna need 2 4-quart containers, or excuse me, I think they come in 5 quarts. So 2 5-quart containers, or you can buy them individually. I think it's cheaper usually to buy them in the 5-quart increments. So we can get started now. All right, so with the hood pop, before we're ready to join the oil, we want to undo the fill plug here, because we want to remove the vacuuming effect that would come if we just opened the drain bolt at the bottom and didn't have an airway to allow air to get in as the oil is draining down. Just like if you would put your finger over a straw, that vacuum effect would retain the oil and make it take longer of a process to drain. So definitely make sure to remove that cap before you start draining the oil. And now we're ready to work underneath. All right, so now we're ready to drain the oil. So with my 16mm socket and either a ratchet or a breaker bar, depending on how tight that drain plug is, we'll come underneath here. And you don't have to remove the splash guard, but I did just because I worry about making a mess. So I will show you how to now move that drain plug, and helpful to have your catch can close at hand as well as your cardboard underneath, so if anything splashes off, you don't make too much of a mess. And yeah, we can just kind of get started. All right, so now we can start undoing that bolt. And I did crack it off screen just so make sure I was ready. And now that I got the drain bolt started here, I'm going to move my catch can and hold it as long as I can, and all right, there we go. And we're just gonna let that puppy drain. Alright, so once you're getting an inconsistent drip like that, you've pretty much gotten the bulk of it. You can wait as long as you'd like, but this will probably keep going on all day. So I'm going to now take my drain plug and set it back in. Should go in nice and easily. You don't want to cross thread this. And then my handy ratchet and or breaker bar, depending on whatever you want to use. If you do use a breaker bar, I would definitely recommend not tightening at the bottom of the breaker bar. Remember, this is just the drain plug. You can strip this, so just a snug little squeeze, and that'll probably do it. Then what I'm going to do is just wipe that off, so that when I add the new oil in, I'll be able to tell if there's any leaks, and if I need to tighten it a little bit more. Don't go crazy on this. Again, it's just a drain plug. And yeah, tighten it up and then wipe off the excess. And then the next thing now is to remove the filter. So this part will probably help you see why I like to use or take off that splash guard. The nice thing is when we start taking this off, the oil is going to start dripping down here. So again, I have my catch can at the ready. You should be able to take this off by hand. If you don't, I'll show you some tools at the end of the video that you can use to get it off. But this should just unscrew, and you shouldn't need any tools. But if you do, I'll show you some to use. All right, so with our catch can in place, we're just going to start twisting slowly. And that's why I like to wear gloves, because this part will get a little messy. So as you start to turn, you should see, there we go. There you go. That's why it's important to have that catch can. Move mine over a little bit. There we go. And then yeah, I'll just start unscrewing this the rest of the way, and I'll probably do it off camera so I don't make a complete mess, but just unscrew it and try and keep it as straight as possible so you don't spill oil all over the place. Alright, so now with our oil filter off, and we're just letting that residual oil drain from up here, we can start working on getting some new oil in here. And the first thing we'll do is put on a new oil filter and fill it with oil. So we'll start with that. Alright, so now with the oil filter, we're going to put some oil in it so that the car doesn't run dry. It's helpful to have a filter or a funnel so it doesn't make too much of a mess. And you'll just fill it up with your new oil until it starts to come out top a little bit. Alright, so that's pretty much what you're looking for, oil all the way up there. Some of it might come out when you start putting it on, that's okay. Then what you can do is just take some of this residual oil and wipe it around this gasket. That makes it so the next time you do this, you won't have to use any tools like I didn't have to in this video. That'll make it so that gasket easily comes off. So now with it filled up, we're ready to put that oil filter back on. Alright, so this is the worst part of the install just because that oil filter is on an angle, so some of your new oil may come out. That's okay. That's why I definitely recommend keeping that oil pan that catch can close by. But once you got that there, just angle it in and start to there you go, starting to lose a little bit, and should seat on nicely, and just turn away. Alright, so once you get it to seat, just spin it on. And again, it should be effortless. Shouldn't have any resistance. And again, just keep going till it's tight on there. Alright. And you should only snug this up by hand. No need for tools. That's why I like to wear some kind of glove, so you can get a little bit more grip on it. And then I'll probably wipe this all down since it is covered in some of that new oil, just so I can ensure that there's no drips. Sometimes you can get an oil leak from here, and again, it's just that gasket, so make sure it's seated properly and that it's screwed on tight. If you do get a slight leak, when you put in the new oil or you check the car, you turn on the car, just try tightening this oil filter a little bit more, hand tight, and you shouldn't have a leak. So I'm going to wipe this down and ensure there's no leaks before I keep going. Alright, so I have my funnel in place, and I have my 5W20 oil, and so this quart contains 5 quarts, so I gotta get up to 7 so I know to pour this whole thing in. And the tip is to hold it sideways so it doesn't glug, and it should come out nicely. And then after I use this whole container, I'll check underneath, make sure there's no leaks before I keep going with the other 2 remaining quarts that I need to do. Alright, with the first 5 quarts in, just want to check, make sure that there's no leaks before and as you can see right there, we have a little leak. So I'll wipe that down, make sure that's not something that I might have missed the first time around, and if it persists, I'll tighten that filter a little bit more. Now that I tightened up that oil filter, I'm ready to put in the remaining quarts of oil that I need. And the way I like to do this is I'm probably going to do about 1.5 quarts, and then the most accurate way to know if you have enough oil is to check your engine dipstick. Always check through that way. Even if you put in 7 quarts and this thing isn't reading anything, unless this thing has got a problem and it's not going where it's supposed to, there's not enough oil in your engine. So just know that trust this over what it says in the book. I might get some backlash for that, but this is how you know if you have enough engine oil. So yeah, I'm going to add probably another 1.5 quarts and then check this, and if it's still low, I'll keep going until I get to 2 quarts and then keep an eye on that even more closely. So I'll do that off camera. Alright, so now let's check to see how much oil is actually in there. So go over to our engine oil dipstick, just pull it out, and then try and rest it on that paper towel one-handed and check the quality of oil. Now first you wipe it off and then reinsert it. Make sure you get a clean read. So I'm going to wipe it off and then insert it and then check it again. Alright, so maybe that's a little bit better. So as you can see, the add below those kind of hash, those cross marks in that box, that's where you know you need to add oil. And then once you start getting into that area right there with the boxes and the slashes through it, that's when you know you have enough oil. But right now it looks like I'm a little on the low side, so I'll keep adding and recheck my dipstick. I don't know if you can see this, but that's looking pretty good. Just reach the boxes, so once you're in that area, you know you've put enough oil in. Alright, so once we have enough oil, the last part is to take our funnel out, put it on a rag so it doesn't drip oil anywhere, and then put on our filler cap, and that is how you change your own oil on a 5.7 HEMI Jeep Grand Cherokee. And yeah. Alright, so now to reset your oil service light that will likely come on. Once you finish the job, what you want to do is come over to the ignition switch. You can just pull it out, just pry your fingers around it and just pull out. And that will get to the key, the port for the key. And all you're going to do is put the key in, turn it once until things turn on. And turn it again, and then you just click the acceleration pedal 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and then turn it off. And then once you start the vehicle again, we should see nothing. And there you go. That's how you get rid of that oil service light once you've done the job. So as promised, I just thought I'd show you different style oil filter wrenches. And I like having multiple because sometimes depending on where it is on the vehicle and the make and model of the vehicle, different ones work really well in different situations. But I would say by far this oil filter wrench is probably the most universal in terms of, at least as far as my experience goes, it's most able to get into tight corners and wherever usually the oil filter is. But they all kind of work on the same principle, where either with this kind of strap wrench, or I don't know the specific name of this wrench, but kind of like a tooth wrench, or even these pliers here, you just grip, and then as you turn, it'll come right off. And lastly, I really like this one, but unfortunately it only works with certain types of filters. But ultimately, you just put it on the back, and you put your 3/8 ratchet in there, or a breaker bar, and then go blow the oil filter, and then you can take it right off. But again, that only works in certain situations. So definitely, it's nice to have an assortment, but I'd say that my go-tos are either this one or this oil filter wrench. So hope that helps. I'll link some down below if that helps. But there are different ways to get that oil filter off in case it's too tight up. If you like content like this, like, subscribe, and comment below if you have any questions. I'll put a link to all the tools that I use in this video below. It's a very simple thing to do and costs most likely cheaper than most quick lube shops around you. I know that most places after 4 quarts of oil start to charge you more than their standard price. So it's a good skill to learn, and it's a very simple thing to do. I think in total, besides all the tools, the supplies cost me around, I don't know, 45 bucks. And the satisfaction of doing a job well done and doing it yourself just is a pretty good feeling. So anyways, like I said, if you have comments or questions, please let me know down below, and I hope to see you on the next video. Thanks.